Ever feel like you're carrying the weight of everything? Every mistake, every doubt, every sorry you've ever said? Nirvana's All Apologies is a raw, unfiltered look at guilt, exhaustion, and the strange relief of giving up the fight. But buried in all that heaviness, there's something weirdly comforting about it. Today, let's break down why these lyrics still hit so hard decades later. No over the top analysis, just real talk about one of Kurt Cobain's most hauntingly honest moments. The opening line, "What else should I be?" sets the tone for the whole verse. It's a question full of resignation and self doubt. Kurt Cobain sounds like he's questioning his own identity, almost as if he's trapped in a role he can't escape. When he follows it with "all apologies," it feels like he's reducing himself to just that. Someone who's constantly sorry, maybe for existing, for his thoughts, or for not living up to expectations. It's a bleak but relatable sentiment, like he's stuck in a cycle of guilt or self effacement. Next, what else could I say? "Everyone is gay" is a line that's been debated a lot. On the surface, it could come off as flippant or even nonsensical, but in context, it feels like Kurt is dismissing the idea of saying anything meaningful at all. The phrase, "everyone is gay," might be sarcastic, like he's mocking shallow slogans or empty statements people make. Alternatively, it could be a way of saying that nothing really matters, so why not just say something absurd? It fits with Nirvana's habit of mixing dark themes with irony. The following lines, "What else could I write? I don't have the right," dig deeper into his insecurity. Here, Kurt questions his own voice, like he doesn't feel entitled to express himself, as if his words don't hold value. It's a powerful admission of creative self doubt, something he struggled with as someone who hated fame but couldn't escape it. The repetition of "what else should I be?" "all apologies" at the end brings the verse full circle, reinforcing this idea of being trapped in a state of apology, as if his entire existence is one long act of atonement for, well, maybe just for being himself. Overall, the verse paints a picture of exhaustion, self deprecation, and a struggle with identity. It's not just sadness, it's frustration, numbness, and a sense of being worn down by expectations, both internal and external. The lyrics are simple, but they carry a heavy weight when you really sit with them. The chorus is deceptively simple, repeating just two lines. In the sun, I feel as one. In the sun, in the sun." At first glance, it seems almost peaceful, maybe even hopeful, like a moment of warmth and unity. But when you consider the song's overall tone of exhaustion and self doubt, this chorus takes on a darker, more complicated meaning. The repetition of "in the sun" could symbolize a rare moment of clarity or temporary relief. Sunlight often represents truth, exposure, or even judgment. Think of phrases like, "everything comes out in the sun." So when Kurt says, "I feel as one," it might mean that, for a brief moment, he's not fractured or conflicted. He's whole, at peace, or at least numb enough to feel unified within himself. But because the rest of the song is so heavy, this moment feels fragile, like it could disappear at any second. Another way to read it is through irony. The sun might not be comforting at all. It could be blinding, oppressive, or exposing if the verses are about guilt and self erasure. Then, "and the sun" might mean being forced into the open with nowhere to hide. "I feel as one" could then be sarcastic, like he's mocking the idea of inner peace. Maybe he's saying that the only time he feels as one is when he's completely drained, empty, or detached. The lack of detail in the chorus is also significant. Unlike the verses, which are full of questions and self criticism. The chorus is almost mantra like Kurt is trying to convince himself of this fleeting feeling. It's not a resolution, it's a temporary escape, a brief pause in the storm. And because it's so vague, it leaves room for listeners to project their own meanings, which is part of why the song resonates so deeply. For some, it might feel hopeful. For others, it might sound like resignation. Ultimately, the chorus works because it's ambiguous. It could be a moment of relief, a bitter joke, or just exhaustion speaking. But in the context of the song, it feels more like a fragile, fleeting break from the weight of everything else rather than a true sense of peace. The post chorus is just two words, married, buried, but in classic Nirvana fashion, those two words carry a ton of weight. At first, they seem random, even cryptic, but when you sit with them, they feel like a sudden punch of existential dread. Married could be taken literally. Kurt Cobain's tumultuous marriage to Courtney Love was a huge part of his life, and the public scrutiny around it was relentless. But it might also symbolize commitment in a broader sense, being tied to something, whether it's love, fame, addiction, or even his own art. Marriage can mean connection, but it can also feel like a trap, something inescapable. Then, without pause, the word buried crashes in like a dark punchline. It's a brutal contrast, going from union to death in a single breath. This could be read as a commentary on how quickly things turn from joy to suffocation. One minute you're bound to someone or something, married, the next you're drowning under the weight of it, buried. It might also reflect Kurt's own fears about his future, feeling like his life was on a one-way track from commitment to self-destruction. The lack of any other words makes it even heavier, like these two states are inevitable, two sides on the same coin. There's also a sonic and rhythmic cleverness here. The words married and buried sound almost the same. It's like a twisted rhyme emphasizing how closely linked these ideas are. The abruptness of it mirrors how life, and especially Kurt's life, could shift from one extreme to another in an instant. It's not a full thought, it's a fragment, a flash of something dark and unresolved, which makes it hit even harder. In the context of the song, this post chorus feels like a whispered confession, a moment where the mask drops. After the chorus's fleeting glimpse of peace, in the sun, I feel as one, these two words drag everything back down to reality. It's a reminder that no matter what temporary relief there might be, the underlying heaviness never really goes away. The second verse dives even deeper into Kurt Cobain's self loathing and emotional exhaustion, using vivid, almost surreal imagery to express his inner turmoil. The opening line, I wish I was like you, easily amused, sets the tone with a mix of envy and bitterness. Here, Kurt is contrasting himself against someone, maybe the listener, maybe the general public, who can find happiness in simple things, while he feels trapped in his own overthinking and pain. There's awareness in these words, like he's exhausted by his own inability to just be without suffering. When he says, find my nest of salt, it's a striking metaphor. Salt represents tears, bitterness, or even preservation, like something pickled in sadness. A nest suggests a home, so it's like he's built his life in this space of pain, a place where he's marinated in his own misery. The next line, everything's my fault, reinforces his overwhelming guilt, a theme that runs through the whole song. It's not just about taking responsibility. It's about carrying a crushing, irrational weight of blame for things beyond his control. The following lines, I'll take all the blame, aqua seafoam shame, continue this theme but with more poetic abstraction. Aqua Seafoam Shame is a beautiful yet depressing image. Shame that's as endless and unstable as ocean foam, something that appears and disappears but never fully goes away. Then, Sunburn Freezer Burn feels like two extremes of discomfort, one from too much exposure, the other from numbness. It's a metaphor for how pain can come from both too much feeling, sunburn, and not feeling at all, freeze or burn. The verse ends with one of Kurt's most haunting lines, choking on the ashes of her enemy. This could be interpreted in a few ways. Maybe it's about swallowing the consequences of someone else's battles, or being suffocated by the remnants of a toxic relationship. The use of her enemy adds a layer of ambiguity. Is it Courtney Love's enemy? His own? The public's? Whoever it is, Kurt paints himself as the collateral damage, left gasping in the aftermath of conflicts he didn't fully choose. Overall, this verse is a masterclass in expressing self destruction through fragmented, visceral imagery. There's no straight narrative, just raw, jarring snapshots of guilt, envy, and exhaustion. It's not just sadness, it's a deeper, more complicated kind of suffering where even the desire to escape pain feels out of reach. The words are simple, but the emotions behind them are anything but. The outro of All Apologies, All in All is All We Are, repeated over and over, feels like a mantra, a resignation, and a philosophical shrug all at once. On the surface, it's a simple line, but the relentless repetition gives it weight like a thought that won't let go. It's the kind of phrase that sounds obvious at first, but the more you hear it, the more it unravels into something existential and even a little bleak. One way to read it as a statement of futility, like no matter what we do, in the end, we're just this. All we are is all we are. There's no grand meaning, no redemption, just existence in its rawest form. It ties back to the song's themes of guilt and self doubt, as if Kurt is saying, why stress over every mistake? In the big picture, we're just here, and that's it. It's nihilistic but also weirdly freeing, like dropping the act and accepting that life doesn't have to be more complicated than what it is. At the same time, there's a strange unity in the phrase, all we are, could mean that everyone, Kurt, the listener, the people who hurt him, the people he hurt, is bound by the same basic human condition. No one's special, no one's exempt. In that sense, it's almost comforting, like a reminder that no matter how isolated you feel, you're still part of something bigger, even if that something bigger is just the shared experience of being alive. The repetition also feels hypnotic, like Kurt's trying to convince himself of this idea as much as he's telling the listener. It's not a triumphant declaration. It's exhausted, like he's worn out from fighting his own thoughts and has landed on this as the only truth he can cling to. And because it's the last thing we hear in the song, it lingers, leaving the listener to sit with it. Is it peace? Surrender? A last sigh before the end? The beauty of the line is that it can be all of those things at once. In the context of Nirvana's music and Kurt's life, this outro takes on an even heavier tone. It's hard not to hear it as a kind of epitaph, a final, looping thought about the inevitability of being human. There's no resolution, no big finish, just the same words, over and over, until they fade. And maybe that's the point. All in all is all we are. Nothing more, nothing less.